All right. Hey, what if leadership lessons that build championship teams could transform how CEOs lead their companies? Today, we're joined by Matt Doherty, former collegiate head coach and winning championship player turned executive leadership coach, helping leaders building winning teams in business and in life. Matt, welcome to the Go for CEO channel. We're super excited to have you, man. How you been?
Thank you, John. I appreciate you having me on.
Awesome, brother. Well, hey, look, we start the same way. We always want to know the ideation, Doherty coaching. Obviously, you've got a storied past, and I'm sure many people watching this are going to be like, oh, I know, Matt. Oh, my gosh, look, holy cow, he's on the Go for CEO channel. But, tell us a little bit about kind of that ideation stage, what it took for you to go
Sure.
from that basketball arena into this world of business and entrepreneurship and those types of things. What are some of those ideas?
Yeah, great. Well, first of all, I think a head basketball coach is an entrepreneur. You cast a vision, you put together a team, you have a plan, you recruit the talent, and then you've got to coach the talent. And then you deal with a weekly P&L, which is your one loss record. You do have a board of directors, which is you have your board of directors or board of governors, depending on what university you're at. You have investors, which are your boosters, and the thing that you have at the collegiate level when you're coaching, especially at a high level, that you may not have in business is the scrutiny of the media and social media. So there's a lot of carryover, but why executive coaching for me? I got my first executive, I had an executive coach in 2000 when I took over at the University of North Carolina. It Bill Guthridge, I replaced. He had Dr. Jerry Bell, the Bell Leadership Institute. And that was my first introduction to executive coaching. And at first, I'm like, man, I don't have time for this. It's the same things I hear from my clients. Like, I don't have time for this. Or the prospective people I'm trying to recruit. And every time he'd meet with me once a month for an hour, and there was always a nugget that I can take away from that meeting and apply immediately to my staff or my team. And I still use some of those lessons today, like, communication is 50% body language, 35% tone, 15% content. And that came directly from Jerry Bell. So in my back of my mind, as a coach, you always had to have a backup plan because you could get fired any minute. And I got fired. My first year, National Coach of the Year. We were number one in the country. Second year, worst record in Carolina basketball history. Third year, rebuilding. My star center got hurt and we didn't make the NCAA tournament for 2 years in a row. And Roy Williams was waiting in the wings, and they moved on from me. And then that was really my opportunity to study leadership. And I went on a leadership journey at the recommendation of a friend of mine, John Black. And I took a class worked with an executive coach at UVA, Carol Weber, took a class of hers and her husband's in the Darden School of Business. My brother went to Wharton, so I took a class there. And that's where I got exposed to Fran Johnston, another executive coach. And I did 360s. I learned about emotional intelligence in 2003. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if I would have taken these classes before I was a head coach, I might still be the head coach at North Carolina. But I think also you need to be ready to receive those lessons. And sometimes, and I say this all the time, you're impacted by three things: the people you meet, the books you read, and the trauma in your life. And in 2003, when I get let go at the University of North Carolina, that was traumatic. And so that was an impact. And you have a choice at that point. You could get bitter or you could get better. And as a player and a coach, you lose a lot. And so what do you do after a loss? Um, I say you lose a lot, and I see in the background you got the Chicago Cubs. You guys are used to losing. So
Oh,
I had to take
shots fired.
as a Yankee and New York fan, I had to take a little shot at the Cubs. But you as a coach and a player, you study the film and you get better. You get better. My number one goal as a player and a coach was to get better today. And so I watched the film of my coaching career at North Carolina. And I got 360-degree surveys from my staff, including the secretaries I had. And that feedback, although it hurt, the truth, you got to mine for the truth. And so I go back to the people you meet, the books you read, and the trauma in your life. That was traumatic for me. And you have two choices. You could be bitter or you could rebound. Hence a book I wrote. You could rebound and get better. And I think as a coach and a player, that's in our DNA. Michael Jordan, who's a teammate of mine at North Carolina, was at Chicago. The Bulls stunk when he was drafted,
Mm-hmm.
and they weren't good his rookie year. Um, but he watched the film. He got better. He brought that determination, leadership. They got some. They got Scottie Pippen. They made some trades, and then they won 6 championships. So I think the carryover from sports to business is dealing with failure. If I had to say, what's the number one lesson? Is dealing with failure and rebounding.
I love it. No, and it brings me to a perspective of kind of what I do. I'm not a YouTuber, I'm not a podcaster necessarily as far as my day to day. Commercial banking is dealing with business owners and
Mm-hmm.
founders, entrepreneurs thinking about capital needs, strategy, structure, all these things. And that's why I love podcasting because, man, you get to hear so many different stories and angles that people come from. And like you said, their trauma, right? Some of their things that built them up, that built character inside them and started to initiate, oh, this is an idea that I could go and build a
Right.
business with. So look, obviously, 2003, dramatic. You did some assessing. I talk about it
Mm-hmm.
in my book. First chapter is all about taking that time to assess.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you at? What's your levels? What's your competencies? Do you find gaps, right? So it's interesting that you kind of put yourself in an environment with learning, Wharton and some of these schools, and then coaches that gravitated to. Now, that first client, when you think about executive coaching and those scenarios, was it over a couple years strategy? Did you take some time just maybe because obviously financially, I don't know if you had to go back to work or something like that. What was kind of that dynamic? Because I feel a lot of
Yeah.
people have that stress in them, right? Where they don't know, hey, I may have a severance package. I may have, a little bit of money saved up. But if I want to get into this business, coaching, where I'm coaching coaches, coaches or
Right.
other leaders, what was that like for you in those first probably year or
Yeah.
two?
Good question. I think that I was floundering a little bit. I got back to coaching, coached at FAU for a year, then SMU for 6 years, got let go again. And, where do you want to go? I think you have to have conversations with yourself and you have to have trusted advisors. I call it a personal board of directors.
Mm,
Who is on your personal board of directors? I think we need to have someone who's a financial advisor, a spiritual advisor, a trusted friend, a career advisor, and that personal board of directors can evolve and change over time. So someone that was very important to me, besides my wife, it was John Black, and I'd go to him a lot because he knew me well and he
mm.
knew North Carolina, and he's somebody I could confide in. And so I think that I was floundering a little bit, your identity, ego, pride, identity. My identity was wrapped up in basketball since I was, oh gosh, in like fourth grade. And
Mm.
so that's hard to give up, right? I liked being the head coach at Notre Dame. I liked being the head coach at North Carolina. I liked being called coach. I liked the money. I liked the cars. I liked the stage. I liked all of it, most of it. And so to pivot away from that, sometimes it takes trauma. And so I got let go at SMU. Larry Brown took over. He offered me a job to stay as his assistant. Larry Brown and I have ties to North Carolina. And so I decided no, I needed a clean slate. I wanted to go to the NBA. So I worked for the Pacers for a while and, didn't feel, I felt maybe there's a little ceiling for me. There's only 32 teams. And just kept looking, got into some entrepreneurial stuff. Um, and then I think the biggest key is to find out what is your purpose. God has given us all a purpose, a gift, a unique gift, and something that drives us that we would do for free. And so, what is that in you? And you mentioned money. I do believe this that is important to save enough money that you could go without a job for a year. Now,
Mhm.
a lot of coaches now get fired and they're getting buyouts of 10 to $50 million. That wasn't me. My buyout was like $450,000 back in 2003. So I had to work. Um, and so, but I had enough money where I could quit a job or I could pivot. And so save, work, live within your means so you can pivot because you don't want to be a slave to the paycheck. And so I was blessed to be able to do that and navigate. And then I think when I really internalized who I was, what my passion was, what my purpose on this earth was, it was to teach and coach while dropping breadcrumbs to the Lord. And that's what I try to do. So, like when I see kids shooting a ball in a park or driveway, I'm inclined to go over there and start rebounding for them and looking at their technique. Same thing in business. I want to fix things, I want to help people. And so I love what I do now. And so much of what I do is like being a basketball coach. I organize peer group meetings. I have three groups of about 15 each. We meet once a month for about 8 hours. So I got to put together a practice plan or a game plan with an agenda. How is it going to flow? Who's going to be there? What are the topics we want to discuss? Do I bring in a speaker for this meeting or not? Who's providing lunch? Where's the facility? And then I have one-to-ones with about 30 to 40 clients a month. And so, what does that look like? How do I prepare for that? That is a lot like when a player, I'd say, okay, listen, tomorrow at after class, we're going to work on your shooting for an hour. Be here at 3 o'clock, and we'll do some shooting drills and break down your shot. Same thing with the one-to-ones. And then when you see that player at a basketball game, all of a sudden hit a big foul shot and kind of look at you like, I did it. That is so rewarding. Same thing with executive coaching. When I get somebody who's going through a hard time, maybe lacks confidence, and or they're trying to sell their company and they're afraid, to negotiate hard, and they negotiate effectively and get the sale of their company, and they thank me like that. I don't tell anybody, but I do that for free. So
Yeah.
the first client, this is something that we do as athletes and we do as coaches. We steal. We steal a lot. We model. We look for the model. We look for who do you want to be like? And you study that person. So when I was growing up, I wanted to be like Dr. J. I wanted to be like Rick Barry. I wanted to be like Michael Corrin. These were all great players at the NBA, ABA, college level. And then I'd go to camps and I'd say, okay, what are they doing? What are the drills they're doing? What are the habits that they are developing to become good players? And the thing I gravitated towards basketball is that you didn't need anybody else. I just needed a ball and I could get better. Where baseball, football at that time in the 60s, 70s, you needed somebody else to throw with. They need to pitch to you. But basketball, I could outwork you. And so I became really passionate about basketball at an early age. So I think the thing is studying other people, taking notes, and then it comes down to if you're truly passionate, you'll develop the discipline to get up early, work on it, and when you're by yourself, and it can be lonely at the time, but if you're passionate about it, it's not work.
Yeah. It reminds me of my kids. I have a 14, 12, and 6-year-old, and they've all kind of entertained in the dance world, the first two, and then they got into basketball. I'm coaching. I coached my fifth and sixth grade year, so we just ended our season. And it's interesting that last quote or saying that you just shared that was really the thing I've struggled with as a parent slash coach is seeing how do I implement that in them, that work ethic that says, hey, I'll go outside and bounce the ball and and just kind of make sure my rhythm of my shot and everything's good. And if they're not doing it, then how do you implement that, right? It's interesting and how that
Well, I think
correlates
I'm
into
going to
coaching.
interrupt you, John. I know it's
Okay.
your show, but I'm going to interrupt you.
No, I love
You
it.
can't instill that passion in them if they're not passionate about it. So my dad was a minor league baseball player, and they introduced me to a lot of things. He owned a Pepsi route. We were middle class, Long Island, and he'd introduce me to baseball, basketball, football, hockey. We played a lot of street hockey. Big Ranger fan, big Islander fan, and then my we'd go to a play on Broadway. I'd fall asleep. Well, that's not where my passion is. And my passion gravitated towards sports, and then my passion gravitated towards basketball. And I was blessed to be tall, and I worked at it. Nobody had to tell me to go out and go to the park and play all day. I in the summertime, I'd get there at 8. Park opened at 8 o'clock, and to lunch we'd jump in the pool, public pool, and get lunch across the street, come back, play to dinner. After dinner, be at the park. That was my daily routine, and I loved it. My dad didn't have to say, hey, son, you need to go out and work on your jump shot. No. So that's where I think it's so important to expose young people to all different things and let them find their passion. And then, okay, if you want to be, a guitar player, be the best guitar player you can. And those things will change. My daughter, she grew up in Dallas for a time, and in Dallas, if you're a boy, they slap you when you're born. They slap you on the butt and give you a football. If you're a girl, they slap you on the butt and give you a pom poms. So my daughter was like doing cheer in fourth grade, but I'm 6'7", my wife's 5'10". My daughter is not going to be a cheerleader. She tried it and then gravitated towards swimming, where she became a good swimmer. My son was exposed to baseball, football, and lacrosse, and fell in love with lacrosse. Got a college scholarship for lacrosse. So just exposing them to different things. My son played the bass, the floor bass in the school band. Exposing them to different things. My daughter liked art, and see where they gravitate, and then support them as best you can.
No, and you're so right, right? I had to learn that because I was in the stands in fourth grade for my younger one, looking at my sixth grader, going, "Hey, I would do this, I would do this." And then when my fourth grader became a fifth grader, I volunteered to be a coach, and that was one of the hard truths that I had to share with myself is, hey, I can't make them do things. I can't be in there with them. They, like you said, and I'll give an example of where I find things right with them, and we could relate this to your executive coaching side. With my oldest one, I don't have to tell her, oh, go build a Lego set. This girl
Right.
will take a million pieces and create this incredible, like Legos can be complex, right? It's hard. And I have zero mind for that, but she is
Yep.
leaning towards architecture, engineering, like that's her mind and she loves it. And she's read, I mean, she's read far more books than I have, and I've read a lot of books, but she is just consuming books, consuming books. And then my middle one is more the networker, the person, getting out there. So it's interesting. And she's turned the corner of basketball. So her skills got better over a year. But so I guess let's relate this to executive coaching, right? When you got that first client and you've had
Mhm.
this experiences that you were still kind of toggling before and like, maybe I still want to coach. Maybe I want to go to the NBA. Maybe I want to do this. And then all of a sudden you're coaching people in an executive coaching and business arena, you know, did you look at some of the attributes that you use there, or did you have to change the way that you thought about it? Because these guys or gals are running real businesses,
Yeah.
creating live experiences, creating money,
Yeah.
all that stuff. So, what
Well,
was that transition?
we all have to sell, right? You have to sell yourself, and
Mm.
you have to find your origin story, which I shared with you about coaching and then getting fired and then getting exposed to executive coaching. So I have to sell my services, especially in the beginning, and so one of the first questions I would get, even from a friend, was, "Well, what do you know about business? Why would I work with you as a CEO or an entrepreneur? Why would I work with you?" And then I would have to sell, right? I would have to sell, and I think, okay, why would they? All right, well, I ran two of the largest brands in the world: North Carolina basketball, Notre Dame basketball, two of the largest brands international, worldwide. I had multi-million dollar budgets. I had to hire a staff. I had to recruit talent every year. I had to train that talent. I had to discipline that talent. I had a weekly P&L, which was my one loss record. I had a board of directors. I had a boss, I had a boss and the president and the athletic director that I had to answer to, and I had to deal with the media. And as I was getting towards the last 2 or 3 points, I'd see the people like nodding their heads, like, "Hey,
Mm.
okay, 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 I get it, I get it, I get it." And I've done it. I've done it 4 times. Have taken over companies, which is sometimes maybe harder than starting it from scratch. But I know what a startup looks like. I know that energy when you hire that first person, it's just you and that person, then you scale. And all of a sudden, that person loses that connection with you. And now you've got to define roles, put an org chart together, hold people accountable, core values, mission statement, casting the vision. Those are all things that carry over to business.
Mhm.
And matter of fact, I say this, um, when hiring people, I think there's a huge advantage in looking to someone that had a background in team sports because they understand vision, they understand goals, they understand roles, they understand losing, they understand winning, and playing as a team. And so a lot of people who are running businesses or entrepreneurs that haven't had those experiences, um, I think that they've got some things a bigger hurdle. And so bringing that to the business world makes a lot of sense. And I think the one thing that we do as coaches naturally is hold people accountable. And that's the hardest thing for business leaders to do. And so by teaching them how to hold people accountable and by holding them accountable, you grow at the end of your comfort zone. That's a John Maxwell quote, making them a little uncomfortable. I think every good business relationship has a decent amount of tension in it. What do I
Mm.
mean by that? If you work with me or for me, can we be buddy buddy? And then if you show up late to practice, can I hold you accountable? Right? So there needs to be enough respect and tension there that you don't want to disappoint me because you know that if you show up late for practice, I'm going to get on you. And so
Mhm.
I think and I came up with this and I talk. I'm a coach, right? So I draw things on the whiteboard, but here I'll give it to you. Um, this is the organizational triangle. So as I was coming up with concepts to teach, I felt that every good organization that I've worked with or seen has talent, systems, and culture. Okay. I call it the organizational triangle. The better systems you have and the better culture you have, the better talent you can attract, the better talent will perform, and the better talent you'll retain. However, culture is king. That's the most important because I've seen teams and businesses with really elite talent and elite systems. They've got the latest and greatest. They've got their org chart. It looks pretty. They've got PowerPoints. They've got SOPs, but they have a bad culture. It's toxic. All
Mm.
right. I think of Enron, that comes to mind. Now that's years ago, but we've seen it in sports. These teams that come together with the best talent and they don't have that culture, but yet in sports, and we see it now. We're filming this in March Madness. I go back to 1983, 82. We had the best talent: Michael Jordan, James Worthy, Sam Perkins. We had the best systems with Dean Smith's motion offense and multiple defenses, and we had a great culture. We played as a team. We held each other accountable. Coach Smith held us accountable. Um, the next year, NC State won a national championship. They had average talent. They had one star player who was, I think, drafted around 15th, Thurl Bailey. They had average systems. They had, I joke like they had play number one and play number two. Like it was not complicated, but they had an elite culture and they loved their coach and they loved each other. And that's why they won. So carrying the organizational triangle to business, talent, systems, and culture. What are your systems? I'm a big believer in EOS, okay, for small to business, small to mid-sized companies. Traction is the book I recommend. It's a system about creating your vision, your mission, core values, org chart, job descriptions, meeting cadence, how you meet, KPIs, scorecards, right here. Easy. It's easy, but it's hard. It's simple, I should say. It's simple, but not easy because it takes discipline. And so that is a great book. And then there's another book that I recommend to all my clients. It's Culture by Design by David Friedman. And that addresses, obviously, the culture part. So EOS addresses this part. Culture by Design addresses this part. And then the better you have those in place, the better it is to attract talent. Because now you have a system to attract talent, and good talent wants to go to a place that has systems and a good culture in place. And that's North Carolina basketball. That's what I played in at North Carolina. Again, great talent, great culture, great systems.
And it makes so much sense when you put it in those simple terms,
That's
right?
right.
And you put it into that diagram of that triangle because they're all interconnected, right? And it's interesting. I'm recently a free agent. The bank I was at just a couple weeks ago when you met me, when we met each other, laid off some people, and
Oh,
it
I'm
was
sorry.
interesting. No, it's all right. It's interesting. I'm in that mode right now. I'm either thinking entrepreneurial things that I've always had kind of in my mind recently, or I'm thinking, yeah, going back but I'm looking for that culture. I'm looking for that leadership. That's actually what I'm interviewing for. Because I don't need to go back. Like I'm talented. People want me, which is great to have that. And I'm humble about it, right? It's humility. But I love the way that you said that. And it's hard to do in an interview. But I think the person that's interviewing you, or you could grab some questions. You can angle the way that you're asking those to find out, how they respond. Does their body language change when you asked a certain question that
Mm-hmm.
that brings up that type of scenario? How
Mm-hmm.
they handle certain situations, right? Stuff like, and even as the interviewee, it's your responsibility, because if you're going to make a commitment and you feel like you're an elite player, which in my mind I am in this space,
Mm-hmm.
then I'm going to choose the team that should, be right for me, right? So I
So
love
it
that you
comes
said
down.
that.
It comes down to behaviors. A friend
Yeah.
of mine says it's all about behaviors. So this is, I love talking about this. So a lot of companies have core values, and I do some keynote talks. That's where I met you at MBBI in Chicago. And I'll ask, okay, who here has core values? And there was a room of 250, and probably 200 people raised their hand. The other 50, maybe their arms are tired. Uh, and that's how, okay, good. And then I point to somebody, what are yours? And they'd go, they didn't know them. But
Yeah.
most people have them. All right, so let's say you have them. I have mine, or respect, trust, commitment, positivity. They should be 3 to 4 because 3 to 4 are memorable. You get past 4, you can't remember. It's like why phone numbers are 3 or 4 digits long. You probably heard me say this in that talk I gave.
Or
Uh,
the 4A formula. So
yeah, the
just saying.
4A formula. There you go. Nice plug. Um, and then out of the core values, though, what are the behaviors that are rooted in those core values? Like for
Mhm.
me, respect is a big one. Well, respect is can show up in how you leave a room. So you have a meeting in a conference room. How do you leave it? Is there Coke cans on the and coffee cups on the table? Are the chairs sprayed all over the place? Or is the trash removed and the chairs tucked in tightly? And I remember when I took over at Notre Dame as the head basketball coach, walking the campus and walking through the office, and I'm like, I'm looking at it through the eyes of a recruit and the mother of that recruit. And I'd see trash, I'd see this, I'd see that. I'd say, we need to remove that. We need to clean that up. We need to paint that. We need to do, because I want that. That's respect, respecting the
Mhm.
personal property, respecting time, being early for a meeting, not on time. On time is late. If you're late, you're telling others that your time is more important than theirs. That's a Dean Smithism. So that's respect. So now you have behaviors that you repeat on a regular basis. Now it's a lot easier to hold people accountable. So if I'm interviewing you, I'll tell you our core values are those, and that, you know, respect shows up in showing up on time and early, and being cleaning up the room after you leave, leaving the room nicer than you found it. Now you'll either be scared by that or you'll lean into it. I
Mhm.
don't care. Either way is good. It's when we are and when we don't clarify what we stand for, then we recruit people because we're desperate and we don't define our culture. Now we accept somebody who shows up late, who leaves the room messy, but we didn't define it. So now we're trying to change that behavior. That's hard to do. All right. That's hard to do. So by saying, hey, John, respect, trust, commitment are core values. Respect shows up in being early for meetings and leaving the room nicer than you found it. How do you feel about that? Tell me of a time when you've done that. Tell me of a time when you didn't. Tell me of a time when your coworker didn't do it. What did you do? So I'm asking behavior type questions. So now you come and work for me because you lean into that. So now if you show up late for a meeting, it's easy for me to hold you accountable. I say, hey, man, what are our core values? Okay. And which one did you break? Respect, commitment. Yeah. So, John, if you were me, what would you do? Yeah. Well, I might address it in front of the team. And, if it happens again, you might have to write me up. Okay, cool. Let's have a good day. It's unemotional because we've talked about it beforehand. And
Mhm.
as coaches, we anticipate problems. We anticipate our best player getting hurt. We anticipate foul trouble. We anticipate the other team going to a zone. We anticipate a snowstorm's coming. For travel plan, we anticipate. So I've got to anticipate some bad behavior. Bill Parcells. Now I'm a Giant fan. You're probably a Bear fan. And Bill Parcells would say every day you show up to work, 5 things, bad things will be happening that you didn't plan for. And when
Mhm.
when this is part of my coaching, people get frustrated with that. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. I remember when Roy Williams was coaching at Kansas, one of his friends said, earmark 25% of your income towards dealing with problems. That's part of your job description, dealing with problems. And earmark. So if you're making $1 million a year, easy math, $250,000 to deal with those problems. Would you take it? Oh, yeah, yeah, I'd take it. Okay, cool. Because it's a mindset. It's all about perspective.
Hmm. I love the wisdom, right? And everything that you're sharing is certainly from the track record that you have put together, right? The experiences, the
Yeah, and
things
the
that you
track marks on my back.
and the track yeah, that's right. That's right. So, and it's awesome, right? It's a cool experience to meet someone who's had the experience of the collegiate success and playing with the greatest of the greats, right? And then being humbled in your own story and journey to then now come full circle, and now you're teaching people and putting that out there and really recognizing what it takes from the collegiate basketball side and all of that journey to the business world side. So give us a couple of examples. I think one of the curious parts of our community is that we're always trying to learn, like, hey, operations, scaling, marketing, every
Right.
business is a little bit different. They're using the same similar techniques, maybe even the same, tools, but everybody has a development of what they do in their own business. So right now, if you take Doherty, and what you're doing, what are some of the ways that you kind of differentiate yourself in the marketplace with the messaging, with the
Yep.
copyright, with look at your brand. I mean, it's distinct. It's got North Carolina colors,
Right.
these types of things. So you've kind of attached yourself to a certain brand. What
Yep.
does that continue to be for you?
Yeah, great question. I think that I never liked the word brand. People say your brand, and I've cringed because I think of my mother. I grew up Irish Catholic, and she was always say, "Stay humble, stay humble, stay humble." And I think I was the most humble superstar in high school that you'd ever see. Like, you'd apologize for your success, and
Ugh,
and
all right.
that's the Irish Catholic in me. So brand is like, but that's the reality, right? I am a brand, and my motto is learn and grow. I like that mindset, the curious mindset. I like the colors. I like clean. I like so that's the colors are dark blue, Carolina blue, and it's definitely not Duke blue. I just want to clarify that. And the motto, right? And live it, breathe it. And then you got to get the message out, and obviously social media. And a lot of that, I did myself at the beginning. And my first hire was, I realized I needed somebody to manage my calendar and some emails. So I hired an assistant through the church I went to, and then she got a job with one of my clients. I hired somebody else. And then after a year, she got a job with one of my clients. These were part time, these are fractional. You hear the term fractional a lot. So there's a great book. Dan Sullivan is somebody that I read a lot about, strategic coach, and he has a lot of wisdom. And he has a book, Who Not How. And so I think one of the problems that we try to do is we try to do it all. So then we either don't do it at all, we push it off, or we don't do it well. And then we get frustrated. But we're afraid to spend money, right? So I think it's important to be a part of a local network. I have a friend who's named Melissa Taylor, who helped me put together my team of fractional employees. I didn't want to spend money on full-time employees. I didn't have the money to spend at that time, nor did I need it. And nowadays, you can get fractional help overseas. I have a social media manager in Caracas, Venezuela. I have my virtual assistant in the Philippines. My marketing manager is in Spain. I have someone who does the ad buying for me, and I have somebody who's my podcast engineer. And I have a bookkeeper. One of the best things I ever did was hire the bookkeeper. Bonnie Corwin is her name, and it's $550 a month. I hope she doesn't hear this, but it's the best money I've ever spent, because I was trying to do that myself or have my assistant do it. Tracking mileage, the expense reports, then turning that over. I was never turning my tax reports, my tax documents into my accountant on time. Now I
Mhm.
do. Now I do. I do it, it's done, and this is March, 12th. So I think putting a team around you, and I go back to coaching, right? We need a point guard, we need a shooting guard, we need a three-man, we need a power forward, we need a center, we need people coming off the bench, we need, the coaches, we need a trainer, we need a sports information director. So who, not how. It's a great book. And find people that's their passion. I go back to this book, Traction with EOS, and it really helps define roles in the org chart. I'm a visionary. I need what they call an integrator. So the visionary is basically the CEO, the integrator is the COO. So I need,
Mhm.
and I'm actually interviewing right now, people for the COO role because, and I did this when I took the job at Notre Dame. I knew I liked to do, and I needed to do three things. I needed to recruit, I needed to coach, and I needed to um, raise money. And those are the three things that I enjoyed doing and I focused on. Okay. I could do other things like run camp, scheduling, oversee academics, facilities management, whatever, game management. I didn't like doing those things. So I found my who to do those things. I had great operations people that managed the day to day, and they would report to me. So then they'd update me. And that's the key is delegation and getting things off your plate that you don't need to be doing, nor should you be doing.
So this was an example of a segment that talks about something that goes from solopreneur, right? Where you just are trading hours for dollars, kind of like an employee mindset, right? And I'm sure you had to kind of get yourself in and out of that, right? Even though you were making a great salary as a coach, all that type of stuff, you were still kind of, salaried, right? So when you go back to now, oh, okay, I'm an independent contractor, I've got my
Right.
own business,
Right.
and then you start putting fractionals in there. There's a cash flow quadrants by Robert Kiyosaki who talks about employee trades
Mhm.
hours for dollars.
Right.
Independent contractor owns their own job.
Right.
Business owner has now the opportunity to delegate and
Right.
inspect what you expect, right? And then put trust into those people that create that momentum in that business. So I love that you frameworked the last segment here of how you've been able to get, virtual assistant and someone you're marketing and the media and stuff like that. So now you've built a real business because you're also shelling out cash to be able to support those people to do the work for you,
That's
right?
right.
So that leaves a concentration effort of you being a coach along with your business being marketed, being followed up, being put into a calendar, that type of thing. So really awesome stuff. So all right, now let's go. Let's have a segment of what you do from a day to day with your people. So on the one on one compared to the one to many, I don't know if you have that model, but is on the one on ones. Let's start with that. What does that look like? Maybe do you do an evaluation test? Are there some tools that you're using like DISC or strength finders or like
Mhm.
what is it
Yep.
that you bring to the table initially so that these
Yeah.
people can come into your ecosystem?
Yeah. I'm an assessment junkie. I've tried them all. I love them. Um, I'm a authorized DISC implementer, if you will.
Mhm.
I like DISC. It's simple. It's easy to remember, easy to apply. Um, and for more complicated, especially hiring, I have a partner who is a doctor of psychology who is in the assessment business, and he can custom make an assessment for a specific role. So I use that in some of the hirings, and I recommend that to some of my clients. So I like the assessments, and I think that's important. A 360-degree survey. Those are the two things that I try to get my clients to do in the initial stages of a relationship: DISC and a 360. Because I go back to the 6 no's of leadership, and I have this in that my book Rebound. I call it STEVIT, STEVIT. I make up a story. He's an Eastern European. I try to recruit to North Carolina. He was a 7-footer with grades, talented kid named Stevitt. Um, the S, and it's the 6 no's, KNOWS, of leadership. Number one, and the most important, is know yourself. Number two, know your team. Number three, know your environment, culture. V, know your vision. I, know your industry. T, know the truth. Mine for the truth. And if you don't mind for the truth, you can't know yourself. Um, and so I think that knowing yourself and where your blind spots, try to uncover the blind spots, try to uncover some of the um, things that you do naturally that you need to undo. All right, break bad habits. It's like going to the range as a golfer. All right, what are your bad habits that we need to get rid of to have a fundamentally sound swing? Not everybody's swing is going to be the same, but there are certain fundamentals. You know, the club face needs to be square to the ball at impact.
Mhm.
We need to get
Mhm.
there. Okay, so we're going to have to undo some of the loops in your backswing to get you to have a consistent strike of the ball, and that's hard. People don't like change. Good players love change because it's a chance for them to get better today, which was our number one goal, to get better today. So I put them through a disc, a 360. There's and that helps understand the six knows yourself, right? Your team, your environment, what kind of environment are you creating? Are you sharing your vision? Are you good at casting your vision? In sports, we're great at casting the vision. We talk about it all the time. Like if
Mhm.
you were to have a bad practice, I'd say, "Hey, John, what's your goal this year? What's our goal? Well, it's to win the NCAA championship. Is this a championship effort today? You're giving a practice? Well, no, coach. Okay. We're always talking about cutting down the nets. We're talking about parades down Main Street. In business, it's hard to cast that vision because there's no end of the season, right? So I coach my clients on find the end of the season. Like tell your team what is the goal and then celebrate the goal. You better celebrate the goal. You know, what is the goal? Well, we're going to have 20 million in revenue. Okay, tell the team, show the scorecard. All right, just like we do in ESPN.com, you see the standings. Everybody player knows the standings. Does your team, your organization know the standings? Your company know the standings? Where do you stand? Where are you compared to your goal? All right. And then when you meet those milestones and you accomplish those goals, celebrate the heck out of it. So that's another thing. Then I do Marshall Goldsmith is a great read in leadership, and he has a stop list. It's like 20 things that good leaders need to stop doing, like death by email, death by meeting, um, um, uh, being the smartest person in the room, um, showing too much emotion, speaking when angry, just about 20 of those things that I do an evaluation. And I ask my clients to go through the list. What jumps out? And you see them kind of, oh, yeah, that's probably me at times. And then I go, okay, if I were to give this to your team, what would they say? And then sometimes I give it to the team. That's like the 360. So those reflections are important.
You made me think while you were sharing this. Um, the Hollywood, right, has the the Oscars, right,
Mm-hmm.
as an example, as kind of a finish line, right, for what the accomplishments they could do. And it's interesting. Last night I was at something called the Valley Industrial Association, and it's about manufacturing in the Illinois state of Illinois, and they gave out the Spark Awards, and it was on culture, it was on safety, it was on, so it was these mile markers. And you made me think of that right now, like, wow, it's interesting, these associations have their own self-built awards, but why?
Mm-hmm.
Because they build that coaching mindset in the companies, saying, hey, if you achieve this level, our association is going to recognize it. And it was so cool because I'll give you an example of the one that won the main prize. It's called the Spark Award, the big one. And the lady was a plant manager for a $100 million company, manufacturer, but her whole team came up to the stage. And you see these people kind of disheveled, right? They're warehouse people. They're
They're
in,
not used to
yeah,
being in on stage. They're used to being
exactly.
in
So,
the
but it
audience.
was,
Yeah.
but you see how their body language, they're just perky a little bit. They're a little bit extra recognition. So it's interesting that you would be able to coach that in an environment where, hey, it's not just 365, we do the same thing. 365, we do the same thing. There's got to be endpoints, right? Like you said, $20 million, man, let's go take a company retreat,
That's
right?
right.
Or a 3-day weekend
That's right.
or something to that effect. So really, really cool stuff. I love it. So look, Matt, as we end the podcast here, we like to go through CEO, right?
Okay.
And we didn't go into every single detail of the business of
I can't
Doherty
give it to you
coaching.
all, John. I
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
give it to you all. I
Uh,
got to get these people to call me at
that's right. That's right.
dohertycoaching.com. That's DOHERTY coaching.com.
Awesome, awesome. Well, look, let's at least give them a snippet of CEO, right? Which is the formula that I use: client experience, engagement, and operational excellence. So, from a client experience, if you give us 30 seconds of Doherty coaching, what does that look like from a value proposition? People are looking at this video, they're looking at the interview, they're looking at your website. What does it mean to have a client experience with Doherty coaching?
Yeah, I think a couple things that really resonate with executive people using an executive coach is two things: isolation relief and imposter syndrome. I think most people in a founder CEO role don't have somebody to talk to about their biggest fears. We talk a lot about fog, fear, obligation, guilt, right? Who can you talk to about your fears? The obligation, the guilt. Um, and because you're afraid that they'll lose confidence or they'll get distracted. So an executive coach is a thinking partner, a thought leader partner with you that you can go to in a safe place and let go of that. Um, I created a journal. Here's another plug, the Timeout Journal, because I think journaling is so important. I have a podcast as well, and I'd ask leaders, what's your morning routine? And they'd say something along the lines, I pray, I exercise, and I journal. And I laugh. I say, well, I could do two of the three. I could pray and I could journal, but I don't care to work out in the morning. And so I created the journal with prompts because I try to journal many times on a blank piece of paper and I get distracted. With the prompts, it helps. And then I'd say a morning anthem. I stole this from a book I read called Soundtracks by John Acuff. There are 10 things that I say to myself every morning, and here are a couple of them. I'm the CEO of me. Uh, um, Momentum is messy. Everything always works out. Those types of things I say to myself, and that is important. And I say it out loud because we can say nasty things to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
You're at a stoplight, or worse, put your head on the pillow at 10:30 at night. Man, I screwed up today, or I'm an idiot, or I won't be able to get this done. Who do I think I am? What if I don't generate enough revenue? Well, I lose the house. My wife's going to leave me. The kids are going to be shamed. Like your mind goes dark. And so we need to say positive things to ourselves. So the isolation relief and imposter syndrome, we just touched on. So I'm the coach. Just like a player comes to me. I had a player, John Killen and Ike Fuebu, both at SMU. They ended up being like all league players, and they weren't considered great players when I got there, and they didn't have the confidence. So I gave them some tools, but more importantly, I encouraged them and told them, yes, you're good enough. You can do this. And that's some of the most rewarding experiences as a coach, both basketball coach and executive coach. So the isolation relief and imposter syndrome. And then, you measure it by success, obviously by revenue. You measure it by, selling the company, retention, whatever KPIs you want to, manage. But sometimes it's just they feel like this is helpful, that this is helpful. Sometimes
That's awesome.
I think Einstein said, not everything is measurable. Not everything beneficial is measurable. I just butchered the quote, but everybody wants to measure things because of, and culture. That's really a longer term measure because it's going to show up in your revenue and retention, but it may take 6 to 12 months.
Yeah. No, no doubt. And what a great explanation of kind of what, ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching this video and watching Matt and the way that he executes, the way he communicates, and imagine yourself on a one-on-one with Matt Doherty. So pick up the phone, reach out to him, dohertycoaching.com. So this next one is E for engagement. So I'm always very curious at the end of our interviews because I'm interviewing a human being, right? And the reality is you are different than the last 400 guests that I've had on, but it's so unique how you answer this. So I'd love to understand
Okay.
how do you engage? Are you a breaking bread guy? Do you like to go to events? Are you a retreat guy? What is it that makes Matt Doherty different in the way that you engage or unique in whatever special way that you like to engage with your vendors, engage with your clients, engage outside of the work that you do, the engagement? What does that look like?
Outside of the one-to-ones and the peer advisory groups,
Hmm.
I have a year-end social and I bring all my groups together. And we went to Top Golf this year. Have dinner. We had a panel discussion with the MVPs of each of the three groups. So we have a year-end awards, and the MVPs got to be on a panel, and then we hit golf balls, and that's fun. I like to have fun. I think the engagement is important. Um, I I enjoy that a lot, but I probably just I enjoy a cigar. I like to sit down and smoke a cigar with somebody, and that's a great conversation starter. Um, yeah, so I like to play golf. So those are outside of the peer groups and the one-to-ones. Those are the things. Go to dinner. Uh, I'm going to lunch today with somebody. So having that time, and I got to make that time because I could bury myself in work, and I got to force myself to do those things because I'm always trying to accomplish.
Well, and Matt, thanks for taking that second, right? I saw you pondering this, and that's that authenticity where
Mhm.
you were really trying to share, hey, what engages with me, right? I love events. Like I just took my first, second, and third grade buddies, 40 something years of connection to a basketball, I'm sorry, to the Blackhawks game on Friday. And it was so cool because we had a picture of us that Jeff, one of the guys, kept from his birthday party in
Oh,
second
wow.
grade. Okay.
That's
A
awesome.
picture of all of us in the picture. We're doing all crazy things because we're 7 years old. And you take it 40 some years. I'm getting goosebumps right now. 45 years later, we're all sitting at the Blackhawks game, the United Center in the BMO Club, and just experiencing each other. And what a cool thing! And that's what I love. Like I love bringing people to things. And one of my I think it's called Clifton Straight. It's called Woo. So that's like my number one. I've never met a person I don't want to meet. And so
Right.
I'm always interested in like that's probably why I host a podcast, right? Just because I'm interested in people and trying to understand like how do they think and what does it do? So all that stuff. So awesome stuff. So this one's technical, operational excellence, and we'll end with this. What are the tools? You mentioned
Yep.
virtual assistant. You have a person for this in Spain and this one in Venezuela, all these things. So, what are the tools that you're using in your business? And has anything changed with AI recently that you are implementing that maybe someone that is getting into the coaching business or has a coaching business that would like to learn, the tools that you use?
Yeah. Um, First of all, Monday.com is kind of our organizational tool. Um, and we find that pretty helpful. It can kind of be your CRM, but also task. I don't like things slipping through the cracks. That's a big faux pas for me. Like, don't let things slip through the cracks. So, are we tracking things? And then, what if you get hit by the proverbial bus and you go down and I need to replace you? Someone comes off the bench and takes your role. Do they know where to go? It should not be, kept in your head. And I think that's the session planning. Um, ChatGPT, if you're not using some form of AI, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, you're going to get left behind in the freaking dust. Now, some people don't like it. They're afraid of it. Okay. Were you afraid of the iPhone? Were you afraid of computers? You can run a better business and more efficient, and especially if you're a solopreneur, you don't have a virtual assistant, you don't have somebody to look at your emails. AI can do all that. Okay.
Mhm.
And so using AI, playing with AI, asking AI, how should I use AI? Developing your persona. I think the neat thing about being an executive coach is we had 2 years ago speakers on AI. I bring in a speaker every 6 months on AI because it changes so rapidly. So I created my persona 2 years ago. What is a persona? So inside of ChatGPT, I have Coach Doherty. I've fed it my book, my website, my bio, how I like to speak. And so I ask Matt Doherty, ChatGPT's version of Matt Doherty, all right, create this proposal, create this video short. I do a 30-minute video every highway to growth every week. I ask it, here's the topic, create a segment, and then I'll edit it. I don't just take it verbatim, but I review it and I put it in a teleprompter and I do it. So if you're not using some form of AI, you forget it, man. Like shut it down. You're going to get so lost.
You're going to get those tracks over you. So,
That's right.
awesome, my friend. Well, hey, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you,
Yep.
to engage with Doherty Coaching, to be on the lineup of people that are looking
Yeah.
for executive coaching?
Thank you. Thank you for asking. They can go to my website, dohertycoaching.com. That's DOHERTY coaching.com, or my email, direct email, Matt, M-A-T-T, at dohertycoaching.com.
Awesome, brother. Well, hey, by the way, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, subscribe to the channel now. Hit that subscribe button. No, right now, right now. And then, hey, pick up my book, The 4A Formula, Untangle Any Challenge and Think Like a CEO. I've had great gentlemen like Matt Doherty, 3 to 400 interviews now on our channel. And we're growing. We're starting to pick up some momentum in this community because it's about that 4A leadership. If you check out my LinkedIn, John P. Andrade, Andrade. I have a newsletter that comes out every week on the 4A leadership. So thanks so much, Matt, for being a part of the Go for CEO community.
My pleasure.